Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris about crafting a Ukraine ceasefire plan, as Washington and Europe seek common ground on ending the fighting. North Korea threatens to take powerful measures in response to US flying long-range bombers over South Korea, which Seoul frames as response to Pyongyang's growing nuclear ambitions. The foreign ministers of Nigeria and Niger hold talks on cross-border security, terrorism and economic cooperation to iron out growing tensions between the two neighbors since the 2023 coup in Niger. Colombia declares a national health and economic emergency over a deadly yellow fever outbreak. At least 34 people have died among the 74 cases reported so far this year. And Myanmar's military government announces the release of nearly 5,000 prisoners in an amnesty to mark the country's New Year festivities amid continuous spree of arrests of protesters and activists since the 2021 coup. Hello and welcome. We begin with a major update coming in from the United States. President Donald Trump has reportedly waved off Israel's plans to strike Iranian nuclear sites. Reports say Trump's decision was in favor of negotiating a deal with Iran to limit its nuclear program, regarding which the two sides are already holding talks. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu government had reportedly planned to strike Iran as soon as next month. This plan has reportedly been red flagged by US President Donald Trump. Reports say that Trump made his decision after months of debate within his administration over whether to pursue diplomacy or to support Israel in stopping Iran from developing a nuclear bomb. Some US officials wanted Trump to be tough on Iran, but others worried that a military attack wouldn't stop Tehran's nuclear plans and could escalate into a bigger war. It was decided with a consensus that an attack on Iran could be avoided for now, especially when the West Asian country has shown interest in holding negotiations over its nuclear program. Israel was ready to carry out the attack and was optimistic that the US would approve the plan. The motive behind the Israeli attack was to deliver a setback to Iran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more. The plan largely required America's cooperation, not only to defend Israel from Iranian retaliation, but also to ensure its successful completion. But for now, Trump seems to have chosen diplomacy over military action. He also reportedly spoke to Netanyahu about this when the latter visited Washington. After the meeting, Netanyahu said an agreement with Iran would work only if it allowed the US to destroy its nuclear sites and dismantle all the equipment. Trump is currently determined to halt Iran's advancing nuclear program.
I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Tehran reluctantly agreed to participate in talks, while asserting its right to reject any final agreement. It also warned that it could easily produce a nuclear weapon if it chose to. The US and Iran held the first round of nuclear talks on the 12th of April in Oman. The discussions focused on avoiding the development of Iran's nuclear program. However, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi later said Tehran's enrichment of uranium as a part of its nuclear program was non-negotiable. He made the statement after the US called for a halt.
What is certain is that Iran's enrichment is a real, accepted, and factual matter, and we are prepared to build confidence regarding potential concerns. But the principle of enrichment is non-negotiable.
Both sides have agreed for another round of nuclear talks on the 19th of April, and we will continue to track all of the updates on Firstpost Spotlight. Moving on, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is in Washington, D.C. and is set to meet U.S. President Donald Trump for a high-stakes meeting. Her top goal? To shield Italy and the European Union from the heat of the now paused U.S. tariffs. Meloni is reported to have discussed her U.S. visit with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and reports add that the EU countries are now betting on the Italian Prime Minister's meeting with Trump for a potential reprieve on tariffs. Referring to her high-stakes meeting with President Trump, Prime Minister Meloni suggested that she will do her best for Italy as well as the European Union.
We know we are in a difficult moment. Let's see how it will go in the next hours. I am not feeling any pressure, as you can imagine, for my next 2 days. We will do our best, as always. Most certainly I am well aware of what I represent and I am aware of what I am defending.
Meloni's visit comes just 2 weeks after Trump unveiled sweeping new tariffs on EU goods, before announcing a 90-day pause. Trump has threatened 20% duty on all exports from Europe, including the ones from Italy, threatening an unprecedented transatlantic trade war. Italy, which has over $45 billion trade surplus with the US, has a lot to lose after the end of Trump's 90-day tariff pause deadline. From fashion to food, Italian exporters across sectors are threatened by Trump's new trade policies. Meloni is seen as a close European ally of US President Trump. The Italian Prime Minister has also engaged with Donald Trump's billionaire buddy Elon Musk. Besides, Trump has praised Meloni as, quote, a fantastic leader, and also invited her to his inauguration in January, a gesture no other EU leader received in Trump's America. Meanwhile, as Trump returned to power, Italy, under Prime Minister Meloni, proposed to buy more American goods. Italy also urged the EU to delay retaliation against Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminium. On top of all, Meloni is also reported to have quietly pushed back against the EU's plan to rearm the continent as Trump began to withdraw support for Ukraine amid the war against Russia. Italy's pro-Trump approach is reported to have earned Prime Minister Meloni her share of admirers in Trump's MAGA world. In February, Prime Minister Meloni addressed a US conservative conference where she echoed Trump's common talking points, such as rallying against mass migration, globalist elites, and quote-unquote woke ideology. Reports say the ideological alignment between Trump and Meloni has propped up the Italian leader as European Union's best bet to bridge the growing divisions between Europe and the US. And with just 3 months until Trump decides whether to escalate or compromise on tariffs, Europe seems to be relying on Meloni's instincts, her influence, and most importantly, her access. Whether that's enough to ward off a transatlantic trade war remains to be seen. And shifting focus to the Philippines, where the corridors of power in the capital of Manila are witnessing heated debates over the arrest of the former President Rodrigo Duterte by the International Criminal Court. The Filipino Senate is currently deliberating whether the due process was followed by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s government. During the former President Duterte's arrest on an ICC warrant last month, a preliminary Senate report has already found glaring violation of Duterte's rights. The report noted that due to the constitutional safeguards which were disregarded during the execution of Duterte's arrest, which the Marcos government carried out along with Interpol. So far, a final report on the matter is yet to be made public. Meanwhile, the spotlight has shifted onto whether the investigation has also been influenced by the upcoming senatorial elections. Now, the official senatorial probe on former President's ICC arrest was launched by Senator Imee Marcos, who is also the sister of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Interestingly, she also left her President Brothers alliance just days after the ex-President Duterte's arrest. Now, many in the Philippines, especially those who oppose the ex-President Rodrigo Duterte, believe that a growing friendship between Imee Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte was behind this move. Now, reports suggest that Imee Marcos launched a probe into Duterte's arrest on the insistence of his daughter and the Vice President Sara Duterte. In return, Vice President Sara Duterte endorsed Imee Marcos for the upcoming senatorial race. And last week, Sara Duterte endorsed Imee Marcos in a 31-second campaign advertisement. However, the two deny any arrangement in exchange for the probe into Duterte's arrest. Critics also accuse Imee Marcos of tapping on ex-President Duterte's popularity to win next month's election. Since Duterte's arrest last month, his allies have been witnessing a boost in their popularity and have been ranking higher in the polls. So while the dust refuses to settle around Rodrigo Duterte's arrest, one thing remains clear. His popularity still holds powerful sway in Philippine politics. For our last story today, let's turn our attention to Russia's growing outreach to Tesla's CEO and US President Donald Trump's close aide, Elon Musk. Russian President Vladimir Putin has once again publicly praised the tech billionaire Elon Musk, drawing a historical parallel between him and the father of the Soviet Union's space program. On Wednesday, while speaking to students about Russia's space policy, Putin compared Musk to Sergei Korolev, who was the chief engineer behind the Soviet Union's groundbreaking space achievements. Putin also highlighted Musk's ambitious vision for Mars.
You know, there's a man, he lives in the States, Elon Musk, who, you could say, raves about Mars. These are the kind of people who don't often appear in the human population, charged up with a certain idea.
Korolev is considered the father of the Soviet space program, developing the first satellite Sputnik as well as the Vostok 1, which carried the first cosmonaut, Yuri Gagarin, into orbit in 1961. Putin went on to say that individuals charged with a certain idea, even those that seem incredible at first, often see those ideas realized.
If it seems incredible even today, such ideas often come to fruition after a while. Just like back in the day, the ideas of Korolev, of our pioneers, came about. Some plans that they made seemed unreal, but all of them came into existence.
Putin's remarks also likely reflect the warmer ties developing between Moscow and Washington under US President Donald Trump, who has appointed Musk as a top advisor. This isn't the first time that Putin has expressed admiration for Musk. During a widely watched interview with American journalist Tucker Carlson, Putin said that there is no stopping Elon Musk. He will do as he sees fit, referring to Neuralink, Musk's brain chip venture. The Russian leader added, "You'll need to find some common ground with him to persuade him." And he called Musk a smart person with whom it is essential to reach an agreement, now due to the far-reaching implications of AI and human enhancement. At the 2023 Eastern Economic Forum, Putin had similarly called Musk an extraordinary person and a talented businessman. Putin also praised Musk for his global influence and entrepreneurial success. Musk, the world's richest man and Trump's most powerful advisor, is the head of SpaceX, a US company that launches rockets for NASA and owns the Starlink satellite internet network. As Russian President Putin continues to shower praises on Musk, the Tesla CEO continues to stir controversy over his views on the war in Ukraine. Musk has been a frequent critic of Ukraine, which is currently battling an over 3-year Russian offensive. The billionaire accused Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky last month of wanting a forever war, and in February said Kiev had gone too far in the conflict. As Putin continues to strengthen its ties with the Trump administration amid its ongoing war with Ukraine, it remains to be seen how Washington responds to Moscow's growing calls for support and camaraderie. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30